Hello and welcome. Tonight we're going to journey deep into the forgotten kingdom of Hallownest, exploring the intricate world of Hollow Knight through countless facts, details and stories that make this game so extraordinary. If you'd like, maybe leave a comment to let us know where you're watching from and hit the subscribe button. If you'd love more of these videos to sleep to, no pressure at all. But for now, settle in, get comfortable, and let me guide you through the winding caverns and ancient halls of one of the most beloved indie games ever created. There's no rush, no pressure, just a gentle exploration of a world filled with mystery, beauty and wonder. Our story begins not in the depths of Hallownest, but in the city of Adelaide, Australia, where three friends shared a dream of creating something special. William Pellon, Ari Gibson and David Casey formed a small independent studio called Team Cherry in 2014. They were passionate about games, about art, about creating experiences that would resonate with players on a deep level. They had worked together on various projects, honing their skills, learning the craft of game development, and dreaming of the day when they could bring their own vision to life. That vision would become Hollow Knight, though at the time they had no idea just how profoundly their creation would touch the hearts of millions of players around the world. The development of Hollow Knight began with a Kickstarter campaign launched in November 2014. Team Cherry set a modest goal of 57,000 Australian dollars, hoping to fund the creation of a small Metroidvania-style game inspired by classics like Super Metroid and Castlevania Symphony of the Night. The response was overwhelming. The campaign didn't just meet its goal, it exceeded it, raising over $57,000 and attracting a community of backers who believed in the project. This support gave Team Cherry the resources and confidence to expand their vision, to create something larger and more ambitious than they had originally planned. What started as a relatively small project grew into an epic adventure that would take nearly 3 years to complete. During those 3 years of development, Team Cherry poured everything they had into Hollow Knight. Ari Gibson served as the art director, creating the hauntingly beautiful hand-drawn art style that would become one of the game's most distinctive features. Every character, every environment, every tiny detail was carefully crafted with love and attention. William Pellon took on the role of designer and programmer, building the intricate world of Hallownest, designing the challenging combat system, and ensuring that every element of the game worked in harmony. Christopher Larkin composed the game's ethereal soundtrack, creating music that perfectly captured the melancholy beauty and mysterious atmosphere of the underground kingdom. Together, this small team created something that felt vast, deep, and alive. Hollow Knight was finally released on February 24, 2017, for Windows PC. The initial release was met with critical acclaim. Reviewers praised the game's gorgeous art style, its tight and responsive controls, its challenging but fair combat, and its rich, mysterious lore. Players discovered a world that rewarded exploration and curiosity, a game that respected their intelligence and didn't hold their hands. The kingdom of Hallownest was filled with secrets waiting to be discovered, stories waiting to be pieced together, and challenges waiting to be overcome. Word spread quickly through the gaming community, and Hollow Knight became a phenomenon, selling over 500,000 copies in its first year. The success of Hollow Knight on PC led to ports on other platforms. The game came to Nintendo Switch in June 2018, and this version introduced Hollow Knight to an even wider audience. The portability of the Switch made it perfect for exploring Hallownest, and the game found a new home among Nintendo fans. Versions for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One followed in September 2018, bringing the game to console players who had been eagerly waiting. Each release was met with the same enthusiasm and critical praise, cementing Hollow Knight's status as one of the greatest indie games of all time. Now, imagine descending into Hallownest itself, into the kingdom that lies beneath the surface waiting to be explored. Hallownest was once a great civilization, a thriving kingdom of bugs ruled by the Pale King, a powerful being who brought light and consciousness to the mindless creatures that inhabited the underground. The Pale King established his kingdom in the depths, building grand structures, creating a society with laws and culture, and expanding his influence throughout the caverns. The capital of this kingdom was the city of Tears, a magnificent metropolis built in a cavern where rain fell eternally from the ceiling above, each droplet echoing through empty streets, creating an atmosphere of perpetual melancholy and beauty. The City of Tears was a marvel of architecture and engineering. Tall buildings reached toward the cavern ceiling, their windows glowing with pale light. Fountains and waterways channeled the endless rain through the streets. The city was home to the kingdom's elite, the wealthy and powerful bugs who served the Pale King and enjoyed the prosperity of Hallownest's golden age. At the heart of the city stood the White Palace, the Pale King's seat of power, a structure of gleaming white stone and intricate design. The palace was a testament to the king's authority and the heights of Hallownest's civilization, though it held dark secrets within its pristine halls. Beyond the City of Tears, Hallownest stretched in all directions, a vast network of interconnected regions, each with its own character and history. To the west lay the Forgotten Crossroads, a central hub of tunnels and chambers that connected many parts of the kingdom. This area was once a busy thoroughfare where bugs travelled between different regions, conducting trade and going about their daily lives. Now it stands mostly abandoned, inhabited by the shambling, infected husks of those who once called it home. The crossroads serve as the entry point for many who venture into Hallownest, a relatively safe starting area that gradually reveals the scope of the kingdom's fall. Descending deeper into the earth, one finds Deepnest, a region of darkness and horror that exists at the very edge of Hallownest's borders. Deepnest is a place of winding tunnels, sticky webs, and creatures that hunt in the shadows. It was never truly part of the Pale King's domain, instead remaining a wild and dangerous place inhabited by spiders, beasts, and things that defy easy description. The bugs of Deepnest developed their own society, separate from Hallownest proper, and they were feared by the citizens of the kingdom above. Even now, Deepnest remains one of the most dangerous and unsettling places in all of Hallownest, a test of courage for any who dare to explore its depths. To the east of the Forgotten Crossroads lies the Fungal Wastes, a region overgrown with massive mushrooms and inhabited by the Mushroom Tribe, a group of bugs who worship the fungi and live in harmony with the spores. The fungal wastes are beautiful in their own strange way, with bioluminescent mushrooms casting a soft glow over the landscape and creating an otherworldly atmosphere. The Mushroom Tribe built their village here, living simple lives devoted to their fungal gods. Though the infection has touched this place as well, the fungal wastes retain a sense of ancient peace, a reminder of the diverse cultures that once existed within and around Hallownest. Beneath the fungal wastes lies the Queen's Gardens, a lush and overgrown area that was once the domain of the White Lady, the Pale King's queen, and the mother of the vessels. The gardens are filled with thorny vines, beautiful flowers, and dangerous plant-based enemies. This was a place of life and growth, carefully tended by the White Lady and her servants. Even in its current overgrown and wild state, the Queen's gardens possess a haunting beauty, a reminder of the care and love that was once poured into this place. The White Lady still resides here, hidden away in a cocoon of roots and vines, waiting for those who seek her wisdom. To the far west of Hallownest lies the ancient basin, a region of industrial ruins and mechanical remnants. This area was the site of the Pale King's greatest works and darkest secrets. Here, in the depths of the basin, the king conducted his experiments with void, the strange dark substance that exists in opposition to the light he brought to Hallownest. The ancient basin is home to the abyss, a pit of absolute darkness where the void pools and churns, and where the vessels were created. This place is essential to understanding the tragedy at the heart of Hallownest's fall, and we will return to it when we explore the deeper lore of the kingdom. High above most of Hallownest, accessible through the City of Tears, lies the Crystal Peak, a mountain filled with gleaming pink crystals that pulse with energy. The crystals were mined by bugs who became obsessed with their beauty and power, and many miners remain in the peak, their bodies transformed and crystallized by prolonged exposure to the strange minerals. The Crystal Peak is one of the most visually striking areas in the game, with crystals jutting from every surface and casting a pink glow over everything. The area is also home to some unique challenges and secrets, rewarding those who brave its heights. To the northwest lies Green Path, a lush area filled with vegetation, water and life. Green Path feels almost like a garden, with moss covering the walls, vines hanging from the ceiling, and pools of clear water reflecting the soft green light. This area is less touched by the infection than many others, retaining much of its natural beauty. Green Path is also where players first encounter Hornet, one of the most important characters in Hollow Knight's story. She appears as a mysterious figure in red, testing the player's skills and watching their progress through the kingdom. Each of these regions is meticulously designed, with its own visual style, enemies, music, and atmosphere. The interconnected nature of Hallownest means that players gradually unlock new paths and shortcuts, creating a sense of growing mastery and understanding of the kingdom's geography. Hidden passages connect distant areas, and careful exploration reveals secrets tucked away in forgotten corners, waiting in silence. This design philosophy, inspired by classic Metroidvania games, encourages players to explore thoroughly, to remember interesting locations they couldn't access before, and to return with new abilities that open up previously blocked paths. Take a moment here to breathe, to let these images settle in your mind. Picture the vast network of caverns and tunnels, each one leading somewhere new, each corner holding a secret. There is no rush in Hallownest. Time moves differently in the depths, measured not in hours but in discoveries, in quiet moments of wonder. Rest easy, knowing that every path will be explored, every mystery uncovered, all in good time. The abilities that the player's character, known simply as the Knight, acquires throughout the journey are essential to both exploration and combat. The Knight begins with only the most basic of skills, a simple nail, which is the weapon of choice in Hallownest, a small sword-like implement that can be swung to strike enemies. As the Knight explores, they discover new movement abilities that expand their access to the kingdom. The Mothwing Cloak grants the ability to dash, allowing the knight to cross larger gaps and dodge enemy attacks. The Mantis Claw allows the knight to cling to walls and wall jump, opening up vertical exploration. The Crystal Heart enables a powerful super dash that can carry the knight across vast horizontal distances. The Monarch Wings grant the ability to double jump, reaching even greater heights. Each of these abilities feels meaningful and transformative, changing how the player approaches both exploration and combat. The nail itself can be upgraded throughout the game by visiting the Nailsmith, a master craftsman who lives in the City of Tears. The Nailsmith can strengthen the nail 4 times, each upgrade requiring payment in Geo, the currency of Hallownest, and rare pale ore. With each upgrade, the nail deals more damage, making combat encounters more manageable, and allowing the knight to face stronger foes. The final upgrade, the Pure Nail, represents the pinnacle of the nailsmith's craft, a weapon worthy of a true warrior. The nailsmith's story is one of dedication to his art, and players can choose how his tale ends, a choice that reflects the moral complexity woven throughout Hollow Knight's narrative. Beyond the nail and movement abilities, the knight can learn powerful spells that consume soul, a resource gathered by striking enemies. The Vengeful Spirit spell fires a blast of soul energy that damages enemies at range. The Desolate Dive spell causes the knight to slam downward, damaging enemies below and breaking certain floors. The Howling Wraith spell releases a powerful scream that damages enemies above and around the knight. Each spell can be upgraded to a more powerful version by finding hidden locations and completing challenges. These spells add variety to combat, allowing players to approach encounters in different ways and to handle situations where the nail alone might not be sufficient. One of Hollow Knight's most distinctive systems is the Charm system, a method of customization that allows players to tailor the knight's abilities to their playstyle. Charms are equipable items that provide various benefits, from increasing health to changing how spells function to providing entirely new abilities. The knight has a limited number of charm notches, slots that determine how many charms can be equipped at once. Most charms cost 1, 2, or 3 notches to equip, and players must make strategic choices about which charms to use in different situations. There are 45 charms in total, hidden throughout Hallownest, sold by merchants, or rewarded for completing challenges. Some charms are simple and straightforward. The Gathering Swarm charm causes Geo to fly toward the knight automatically, making it easier to collect currency. The Wayward Compass charm shows the knight's position on the map, helping with navigation. The Stalwart Shell charm increases the invincibility time after taking damage, giving players more breathing room in combat. Other charms are more complex and build-specific. The Fragile Strength charm increases nail damage significantly, but breaks if the knight dies, requiring repair. The Sharp Shadow charm causes the dash to deal damage to enemies, turning a defensive maneuver into an offensive tool. The Spell Twister charm reduces the soul cost of spells, allowing for more frequent casting. Some of the most interesting charms fundamentally change how the game is played. The Grubsong charm causes the knight to gain soul when taking damage, creating a risk-reward dynamic where getting hit can actually be beneficial. The Weaversong charm summons Weaverlings, small spider-like creatures that attack enemies automatically. The Dream Shield charm creates a rotating shield that blocks projectiles and damages enemies on contact. players can experiment with different charm combinations, discovering synergies and creating builds that suit their preferred approach to the game. This system adds tremendous depth and replayability, as different charm setups can make familiar challenges feel entirely new. The enemies of Hallownest are as varied and memorable as the regions they inhabit. Each enemy type has its own behaviour patterns, attack methods, and visual design. In the Forgotten Crossroads, players encounter simple enemies like tick-ticks, small tick-like creatures that crawl along walls and ceilings, and crawlids, even simpler bugs that walk back and forth. These basic enemies teach players the fundamentals of combat timing and spacing. As players venture into more dangerous areas, they face more complex foes. The Moss Knights of Greenpath are armoured warriors who swing their weapons in wide arcs and must be fought with patience and precision. The Mantis tribe, encountered in the Mantis village, are skilled fighters who attack with speed and aggression, demanding respect and quick reflexes. Many enemies in Hallownest are infected, their bodies glowing with sickly orange pustules, their movements erratic and aggressive. The infection is a plague that has swept through the kingdom, turning its citizens into mindless, violent husks. Understanding the infection is key to understanding Hallownest's tragedy, and we will explore this in depth when we discuss the lore. For now, it's enough to know that the infected enemies were once ordinary bugs, living their lives in the kingdom before the plague took them. There's a melancholy to fighting these creatures, a sense that you're putting them out of their misery rather than simply defeating enemies. The bosses of Hollow Knight are among the game's greatest achievements, each one a unique challenge with its own mechanics, story and atmosphere. The first major boss many players encounter is the False Knight, a large armoured figure who wields a massive mace. The False Knight appears intimidating, but observant players will notice that the armour is too large, that something smaller is piloting it from within. When defeated, the armour breaks apart to reveal Maggot, a small, weak creature who simply wanted to be strong and protect his siblings. This encounter sets the tone. For many of Hollow Knight's bosses, creatures who are not simply evil but tragic, driven by understandable motivations, even as they stand in the knight's path. Hornet appears as a boss twice in the game, first in Greenpath and later in the Kingdom's Edge. These fights are tests of skill, with Hornet moving quickly, throwing her needle and setting traps with thread. She's not an enemy in the traditional sense, but rather someone evaluating the knight, determining if they are worthy of the task ahead. Hornet is the daughter of the Pale King and Hera the Beast, one of the three dreamers, making her the knight's half-sister, though she is not a vessel like the knight. Her story is complex and deeply tied to Hallownest's fate, and she plays a crucial role in the game's events. Hornet is so beloved by fans that Team Cherry is creating an entire game centered around her, Hollow Knight Silksong, which we'll discuss later. The Mantis Lords are one of the most celebrated boss fights in Hollow Knight, a battle that is both challenging and fair, requiring players to learn patterns and react with precision. The Mantis Lords are the leaders of the Mantis tribe, warriors who have maintained their honour and resisted the infection through sheer discipline and strength. They test the knight in combat, and if the knight proves victorious, the Mantis Lords bow in respect, granting safe passage through their village. This is one of the few boss encounters that ends not in death, but in mutual respect, a moment of honour in a kingdom filled with tragedy. The Soul Master is a boss encountered in the Soul Sanctum, a place where scholars studied soul and conducted terrible experiments. The Soul Master became obsessed with soul, believing it could grant immortality and protect against the infection. His experiments on other bugs were cruel and unethical, and he himself became twisted and mad from consuming too much soul. The fight against the Soul Master is frantic and chaotic, with the boss teleporting around the arena and firing soul blasts. When defeated, he appears to die, but if the player returns later, they discover he is transformed into the Soul Tyrant, an even more powerful and desperate version of himself, clinging to his delusions of immortality. Deep in the ancient basin lies one of the game's most atmospheric boss encounters, the Broken Vessel. This boss is another vessel, like the Knight, one of the many failed attempts by the Pale King to create a being capable of containing the infection. The Broken Vessel's body has been infected, and it is piloted by the infection itself, moving in jerky, unnatural ways. The fight is tragic, as the player is essentially fighting what the Knight could have become, a failed vessel consumed by the very thing it was meant to contain. The music during this fight is haunting, and the visual design of the broken vessel, with infection bursting from cracks in its shell, is both beautiful and disturbing. Perhaps the most challenging of the main story bosses is the Watcher Knights, encountered in the Watcher's Spire. This fight pits the Knight against not one but two heavily armoured knights simultaneously, with more waiting to join the battle as their companions fall. The Watcher Knights roll across the arena, slash with their weapons, and coordinate their attacks, creating an intense and demanding encounter. Many players consider this one of the hardest required fights in the game, a true test of skill and endurance. However, observant players can find a secret that makes the fight slightly easier: a chandelier that can be dropped to destroy one of the sleeping knights before the battle begins, reducing the total number of enemies from 6 to 5. The three dreamers are not traditional bosses, but they are essential to the game's progression. Lurien the Watcher, Monomon the Teacher, and Hera the Beast are powerful bugs who entered an eternal sleep to serve as seals, locks that keep the Hollow Knight imprisoned in the Temple of the Black Egg. To reach the game's ending, the Knight must use the Dream Nail, a special weapon that can enter the dreams of sleeping or dead bugs, to break these seals. Each dreamer is protected by challenges and guardians, and reaching them requires exploration and mastery of the game's mechanics. When all three dreamers are defeated, the way to the Hollow Knight is opened, and the endgame begins. The Hollow Knight itself is the final boss of the base game's main ending. This is the pure vessel, the one creation of the Pale King that was supposed to be perfect, a being with no mind to think, no will to break, and no voice to cry suffering. The Hollow Knight was chosen to contain the Radiance, the source of the infection, sealing her away within its body and then being locked in the Temple of the Black Egg. But the Pale King's plan failed. The Hollow Knight was not truly hollow. It had thoughts, feelings, and a bond with its father. This imperfection allowed the Radiance to corrupt it from within, and the infection leaked out, spreading through Hallownest and causing the kingdom's fall. The fight against the Hollow Knight is tragic and beautiful, with the boss sometimes pausing to stab itself, trying to help the player by weakening its own body. The music swells with emotion, and the entire encounter feels like a mercy killing, putting an end to the suffering of a being that never asked to be created. But the Hollow Knight is not the true final boss. For those who explore thoroughly, gather the Void Heart charm and meet certain conditions, a different ending becomes available. After defeating the Hollow Knight, Hornet intervenes, holding the Hollow Knight down and allowing the player to use the Dream Nail to enter its mind. Inside, the knight faces the Radiance herself, the ancient god who is the true source of the infection. The Radiance is a being of light, a moth goddess who once ruled over the bugs of Hallownest before the Pale King arrived and supplanted her. When the bugs forgot her and turned to the Pale King's light, the Radiance became angry and vengeful, creating the infection as a way to force the bugs to remember her, to return to her light. The fight against the Radiance is epic and challenging, taking place in a dream realm of blinding light. Defeating her requires skill, persistence, and mastery of everything the game has taught. When the Radiance finally falls, the infection ends, and Hallownest is freed from the plague that destroyed it. There is even a secret, harder version of this fight for those who seek the ultimate challenge. By completing the Godmaster content, a series of boss rushes and challenges added in a free DLC, players can face the Absolute Radiance, a more powerful and aggressive version of the final boss. This fight is considered one of the hardest challenges in all of gaming, requiring perfect execution and deep understanding of the game's mechanics. Defeating the Absolute Radiance is a badge of honour among Hollow Knight players, proof of true mastery. The lore of Hollow Knight is deep, complex and largely told through environmental storytelling, item descriptions and cryptic dialogue. The game does not spell out its story explicitly, instead trusting players to piece together the narrative from fragments scattered throughout the kingdom, like shards of a broken mirror reflecting different parts of the same truth. This approach creates a sense of mystery and encourages players to think deeply about what they're experiencing, to form theories and discuss their interpretations with others. The community of Hollow Knight players has spent countless hours analysing every detail, every line of dialogue, every background element, trying to understand the full story of Hallownest. Pause here for a moment. Feel the weight of this ancient story, the tragedy that unfolded in the depths. Hallownest's tale is one of ambition and sacrifice, of love and loss, of light and darkness intertwined. As you listen, let these themes wash over you gently, like waves on a distant shore. There is beauty in this sadness, meaning in this mystery. At the heart of the lore is the conflict between the Pale King and the Radiance, two higher beings with fundamentally different philosophies. The Radiance represented unity through shared consciousness, all bugs connected to her light, thinking and dreaming together. The Pale King represented individuality and free will, granting bugs the ability to think for themselves, to build a civilization, to have culture and society. When the Pale King arrived in the lands that would become Hallownest, the bugs turned away from the Radiance, choosing the gift of sapience over the comfort of shared dreams. The Radiance was forgotten, her temples abandoned, her worship ended. But a god does not die easily, and the Radiance's anger festered in the dream realm, growing stronger as she plotted her return. The infection was the Radiance's revenge and her attempt to reclaim her followers. It spread through dreams, entering the minds of bugs and overwhelming their individual consciousness with her light. Infected bugs lost themselves, becoming extensions of the Radiance's will, mindless and violent. The Pale King, seeing his kingdom threatened, sought a solution. He discovered the void, a dark substance that existed in the abyss beneath his palace, a force that was the opposite of the Radiance's light. The void was emptiness, absence, nothingness. The Pale King theorized that a being made of void could contain the radiance, serving as a prison that she could not escape from or corrupt. To create such a being, the Pale King and the White Lady conceived thousands of children, vessels born in the abyss and infused with void. These vessels were meant to be empty, hollow, without mind or will. Most of them died or were discarded as failures, their broken shells littering the abyss. But one vessel seemed perfect, showing no signs of thought or emotion. This was the Hollow Knight, and the Pale King placed all his hopes in this single creation. The Hollow Knight was trained, raised in the White Palace, and prepared for its purpose. When the time came, the radiance was sealed within the Hollow Knight's body, and the Hollow Knight was locked in the Temple of the Black Egg, with the three dreamers serving as seals to ensure it could never be opened. For a time, the plan worked. The infection receded, and Hallownest enjoyed peace. But the Pale King had made a fatal error. The Hollow Knight was not truly hollow. It had spent time with the Pale King, had been acknowledged and perhaps even loved by its father. It had developed a sense of self, an idea, and this tiny imperfection was enough. The radiance exploited this weakness, slowly corrupting the Hollow Knight from within. The infection began to leak out, spreading through Hallownest once more. The Pale King, realizing his failure, disappeared, his fate unknown. The kingdom fell into ruin, its citizens infected or fled, its grand structures abandoned. By the time the player's knight arrives in Hallownest, the kingdom is a ghost of its former self, a beautiful corpse waiting to be explored. The knight, the player character, is another vessel, one of the many that were discarded in the abyss. Somehow, this small vessel escaped Hallownest, wandering the wastelands beyond the kingdom's borders. What called it back is never explicitly stated, but the implication is that the knight returned to finish what the Hollow Knight could not, to truly end the infection and free Hallownest from the Radiance's curse. The knight's journey is one of growing power and understanding, gathering the strength and knowledge needed to face the source of the plague. The Dream Nail is a key item in this journey, a weapon forged by the Moth Tribe, the original worshippers of the Radiance. The Dream Nail can cut through the barrier between the waking world and the dream realm, allowing the knight to enter the minds and dreams of other beings. With the Dream Nail, the knight can access hidden areas, fight dream versions of bosses, and ultimately enter the Hollow Knight's mind to face the Radiance directly. The Dream Nail also allows the knight to hear the thoughts of various characters and enemies, providing insight into their minds and adding depth to the world. A sleeping bug might dream of simpler times, an enemy might think only of hunger or fear, and these small details make Hallownest feel alive and real. Throughout Hallownest, the knight encounters many NPCs, non-player characters who provide services, quests, or simply add flavour to the world. Elderbug is one of the first characters players meet, an old bug sitting in Dirtmouth, the small village above Hallownest. Elderbug is kind and worried, warning the knight about the dangers below, and expressing surprise and pleasure when the knight returns from their expeditions. As the game progresses and the knight rescues various bugs, Dirtmouth slowly becomes more populated, and Elderbug's dialogue reflects his happiness at seeing the town come back to life. He represents the hope that Hallownest can be saved, that life can return to the kingdom. Cornifer is a cartographer who explores Hallownest, mapping its various regions. Players can find Cornifer in different areas, recognizing his location by his distinctive humming. Purchasing maps from Cornifer is essential for navigation, as the game does not provide a map until the player finds Cornifer or buys a map from his shop in Dirtmouth, run by his wife Iselda. The maps Cornifer sells are incomplete, showing only the basic layout of an area. As the player explores, the map fills in automatically, but only for areas the player has actually visited. This system encourages thorough exploration and rewards players for venturing off the beaten path. Quirrell is one of the most beloved NPCs in Hollow Knight, a wandering scholar who appears in various locations throughout the game. Quirrell is searching for something, though he doesn't quite remember what. He is kind, thoughtful, and provides interesting commentary on the places he visits. As the player progresses, they encounter Quirrell in different regions, and his dialogue suggests he is slowly remembering his past. Eventually it is revealed that Quirrell was the student and protector of Monomon the teacher, one of the three dreamers. He wore a mask that extended his life and suppressed his memories, allowing him to guard Monomon for ages. When the knight defeats Monomon, breaking her seal, Quirrell's purpose is fulfilled. The last time players see Quirrell, he is sitting by the blue lake, having removed his mask and nail, staring peacefully at the water. If the player returns later, Quirrell is gone, his nail left behind. The implication of his fate is left ambiguous, but many players interpret this as Quirrell choosing to end his life peacefully, his task complete, and his memories returned. It's a bittersweet moment that showcases Hollow Knight's ability to tell emotional stories with minimal dialogue. Myla is a miner found in the Crystal Peak, cheerfully singing as she works. When the player first encounters her, she is happy and friendly, humming a tune and talking about her love of mining. But if the player returns to Myla after acquiring the Crystal Heart ability, which requires passing through areas with heavy infection, they find that Myla has become infected. She no longer speaks, only makes hostile noises, and she attacks the player on sight. Many players choose not to fight Myla, leaving her to her infected mining, unable to bring themselves to kill this character who was so full of life and joy. Myla's fate is one of the small tragedies that make Hallownest's fall feel personal and heartbreaking. The grubs are small, adorable creatures trapped in glass jars throughout Hallownest. Freeing grubs is an optional side quest, but it's one that many players engage with because the grubs are so endearing. Each grub makes happy sounds when freed and returns to the grub father, their parent, who waits in the forgotten crossroads. The grub father rewards the knight for each grub rescued, providing Geo and eventually a charm. If the player rescues all 46 grubs, they receive the Grubberfly's Elegy charm. However, if the player returns to the grub father after rescuing all the grubs, they find a disturbing scene. The grub father's belly is swollen and moving, and the grubs are nowhere to be seen. The implication is that the grub father has eaten his children, though the game leaves this ambiguous. Some players interpret this as a natural part of the grub's life cycle, similar to certain insects in the real world, while others see it as a dark twist. Either way, it's another example of Hollow Knight's willingness to include unsettling elements in its world. The Grim Troop is a group of mysterious performers who arrive in Hallownest as part of a free DLC added to the game. The troop is led by Grim, a charismatic and enigmatic figure who speaks in riddles and performs elaborate rituals. The Grim Troop questline involves collecting flames scattered throughout Hallownest and participating in a ritual that allows Grimm to be reborn. The player can choose to complete the ritual, fighting Grimm and then his more powerful form, Nightmare King Grimm, or they can choose to banish the troupe with the help of Broom, one of Grimm's followers who has doubts about the ritual. This choice has consequences, affecting which charms the player receives and the fate of the troupe. Nightmare King Grimm is one of the hardest bosses in the game, a fast and aggressive fight that requires perfect timing and pattern recognition. The Godmaster DLC added a significant amount of endgame content, including the God Home, a realm accessed through a secret area in the Junk Pit. In God Home, the knight can challenge themselves in the Pantheons, a series of boss rushes that test the player's mastery of the game's combat. There are 5 Pantheons in total, each one longer and harder than the last. The 5th and final Pantheon, the Pantheon of Hallownest, requires the player to fight every boss in the game in sequence, a marathon challenge that can take over an hour to complete. Beating the Pantheon of Hallownest unlocks new endings and the fight against the Absolute Radiance, the ultimate test of skill. The Godmaster content is designed for players who have mastered the game and want an even greater challenge, and it has kept the community engaged for years. Consider now the art style of Hollow Knight, one of its most immediately striking features. Every frame of the game is hand-drawn, with Ari Gibson creating thousands of individual sprites and animations, each one crafted with care and attention. The art has a distinct aesthetic, blending cute character designs with dark, gothic environments. The bugs of Hallownest are expressive and full of personality despite their simple designs. The environments are richly detailed, with layers of parallax scrolling creating a sense of depth, as if you could step into the screen and walk through these spaces. Each region has its own colour palette and visual theme, making them instantly recognisable and memorable. The City of Tears is drenched in blue and grey, with rain falling constantly, the sound of water a perpetual companion. Greenpath is lush and green, filled with vegetation and life, the air thick with the scent of moss and earth. The crystal peak glows with pink crystal light, humming with barely audible energy. Deepnest is dark and oppressive, with webs and organic structures creating a sense of claustrophobia, the silence broken only by the skittering of unseen creatures. This visual variety keeps the game feeling fresh and interesting throughout its lengthy runtime. The animation in Hollow Knight is smooth and expressive, with every character and enemy moving in ways that convey personality and intent. The knight's movements are simple but effective, with clear animations for every action. Boss animations are elaborate and telegraphed, allowing players to learn patterns and react appropriately. Environmental animations like the rain in the City of Tears or the glowing spores in the fungal wastes add life and atmosphere to the world. The attention to detail in the animation extends to small touches, like the way the knight's cloak flutters when dashing or the way certain enemies react when hit. Christopher Larkin's soundtrack for Hollow Knight is a masterpiece of atmospheric composition. The music perfectly captures the mood of each area and situation, enhancing the player's emotional experience. The City of Tears theme is melancholic and beautiful, with piano and strings creating a sense of faded grandeur. The Mantis Lord's theme is intense and rhythmic, driving the player forward in one of the game's most exciting fights. The Radiance theme is chaotic and overwhelming, with harsh sounds and discordant melodies reflecting the boss's nature. Larkin uses a variety of instruments and styles, from orchestral pieces to ambient soundscapes, to chiptune-inspired tracks. The music is never intrusive, instead serving to deepen the player's immersion in Hallownest. Many tracks have become iconic, instantly recognisable to fans of the game, and the soundtrack has been released separately, allowing people to enjoy the music outside of the game. The sound design complements the music perfectly, with every action and event having appropriate audio feedback. The nail makes a satisfying sound when it connects with an enemy. Spells have distinct audio cues that help players know when they've been cast successfully. Environmental sounds like dripping water in caves or the buzzing of infected enemies add to the atmosphere. Voice acting in Hollow Knight is minimal and stylized, with characters speaking in gibberish that conveys emotion without using actual words. This approach gives characters personality while leaving their exact words to the player's imagination, and it fits the game's mysterious fairy tale-like tone. Hollow Knight's difficulty is a topic of much discussion among players. The game is challenging, requiring precise timing, pattern recognition, and spatial awareness. Death is frequent, especially for new players, and the game's approach to death is both punishing and fair. When the knight dies, they lose all their geo and return to the last bench they rested at. A shade appears at the location of death, holding the lost geo. If the player can return to the shade and defeat it, they recover their geo. But if they die again before reaching the shade, the first shade disappears, and the geo is lost forever. This system creates tension and encourages careful play, but it never feels unfair. Geo can always be earned again, and the game provides plenty of opportunities to gather currency. The bench system serves as Hollow Knight's checkpoints and save points. Benches are scattered throughout Hallownest, usually placed at reasonable intervals. Resting at a bench fully heals the knight, refills their soul, and saves the game. However, resting at a bench also respawns all enemies in the world, except for bosses and certain unique enemies. This creates interesting decisions, as players must weigh the benefit of healing against the cost of having to fight through enemies again. The placement of benches is generally fair, with most areas having at least one bench, and difficult sections often having benches nearby. The game's difficulty can be adjusted somewhat through the charm system and player choices. Equipping defensive charms like Quick Focus, which speeds up healing, or Stalwart Shell, which increases invincibility time after being hit, can make the game more forgiving. Offensive charms like Fragile Strength or Shaman Stone can help players defeat enemies and bosses more quickly, reducing the time spent in dangerous situations. Players can also choose to explore areas in different orders, tackling easier regions first to gather power-ups before facing harder challenges. The game respects player agency, allowing different approaches and playstyles. For players who find the game too difficult, there are options. The game includes several charms that can make things easier, and the community has created extensive guides and tutorials. Team Cherry has stated that they designed Hollow Knight to be challenging but fair, with every death being a learning opportunity. The game teaches through experience, encouraging players to observe enemy patterns, experiment with different strategies, and persist through failure. Many players who initially struggled with Hollow Knight report that overcoming its challenges is deeply rewarding, creating a sense of accomplishment that stays with them long after finishing the game. Conversely, for players who find the base game too easy, or who have mastered its challenges, there is plenty of harder content. The Godmaster DLC provides boss rushes and the Pantheons, which are among the hardest challenges in gaming. The Path of Pain, a secret platforming gauntlet hidden in the White Palace, tests the player's movement skills to their absolute limit. Completing the game with self-imposed restrictions, like not using charms or not upgrading the nail, provides additional challenge for those who seek it. The game has something to offer players of all skill levels, from those who struggle with action games to those who seek the ultimate test of their abilities. The speedrunning community has embraced Hollow Knight, with players competing to complete the game as quickly as possible. Various categories exist, from any percent runs that simply reach an ending as fast as possible, to 100% runs that require collecting every item and completing every task. The world record times are astonishingly fast, with skilled players completing the game in under an hour through a combination of precise execution, sequence breaking, and deep knowledge of the game's mechanics. Watching speedruns of Hollow Knight is fascinating, as runners use techniques and strategies that casual players might never discover, exploiting the game's physics and design in creative ways. The community around Hollow Knight is passionate, creative, and welcoming. Fans have created countless pieces of fan art, ranging from cute and wholesome depictions of characters to dark and atmospheric scenes inspired by the game's aesthetic. Fan comics explore the backstories of characters, imagine alternate scenarios, or simply celebrate the world of Hallownest. Musicians have created covers and remixes of Christopher Larkin's soundtrack, and some have composed original pieces inspired by the game. Cosplayers have brought characters like Hornet, the Knight, and Grim to life at conventions around the world. The lore community is particularly active, with players creating detailed theories and analyses of every aspect of Hollow Knight's story. YouTube channels dedicated to Hollow Knight lore have amassed large followings, with creators like Mossbag producing comprehensive videos that explore the game's narrative in depth. The ambiguity of Hollow Knight's storytelling means that there is always room for interpretation and discussion, and the community thrives on debating theories and sharing discoveries. Team Cherry has remained relatively quiet about the definitive answers to many of the game's mysteries, preferring to let players draw their own conclusions, which has only fueled the community's enthusiasm. Hollow Knight has won numerous awards and accolades since its release. It has been praised by critics and players alike for its art, music, gameplay, and world design. It has appeared on countless Best Indie Games and Best Metroidvania Games lists. The game's success has been a testament to what a small, dedicated team can achieve with passion and vision. Team Cherry has stated in interviews that they poured their hearts into Hollow Knight, working long hours and making countless sacrifices to bring their vision to life. That dedication shows in every aspect of the game, from the tiniest background detail to the most epic boss fight. The success of Hollow Knight led to Team Cherry announcing a sequel, Hollow Knight Silksong, which focuses on Hornet as the playable character. Silksong was originally planned as DLC for Hollow Knight, but grew in scope to become a full standalone game. The game will feature new kingdoms to explore, new characters to meet, new enemies to fight, and new mechanics built around Hornet's unique abilities. Hornet is faster and more agile than the Knight, using her needle and thread in combat and movement. Silksong has been highly anticipated by fans, with every piece of news or trailer being analysed in exhaustive detail. Team Cherry has been characteristically quiet about the game's development, providing few updates and no release date, which has only increased the community's excitement and speculation. The few glimpses of Silksong that have been shown suggest a game that builds on Hollow Knight's foundation while introducing new ideas. The kingdom of Farloom, where Silksong takes place, appears to be above ground, in contrast to Hallownest's underground setting. The environments shown are bright and colourful, with lush gardens, towering structures and strange new creatures. Hornet's moveset looks fluid and dynamic, with emphasis on aerial combat and mobility. New mechanics, like a crafting system for tools and items, have been teased. The music, once again composed by Christopher Larkin, sounds beautiful and evocative. Fans are eager to explore this new world and uncover its secrets, to see how Hornet's story unfolds and what connections it might have to the events of Hollow Knight. While waiting for Silksong, the Hollow Knight community has remained active and engaged. Players continue to discover new secrets and strategies in the original game. Modders have created custom content, from new bosses and areas to complete overhauls that transform the game. Randomizers, which shuffle the locations of items and abilities, provide a fresh way to experience Hollow Knight, requiring players to adapt to unexpected situations and find creative solutions. Challenge runs, where players impose restrictions on themselves, keep the game feeling new even after dozens of hours of play. Hollow Knight has also inspired other developers, with many indie games citing it as an influence. The success of Hollow Knight demonstrated that there was a hungry audience for challenging, atmospheric Metroidvania games with deep lore and beautiful art. Games like Ender Lilies, Blasphemous, and Ori, and The Will of the Wisps have drawn comparisons to Hollow Knight, and while each has its own identity, they all share a commitment to quality and artistry that Hollow Knight exemplified. The legacy of Hollow Knight extends beyond its direct influence on other games. It has become a cultural touchstone within the gaming community, a game that people reference and celebrate. Memes about Hollow Knight are common, from jokes about the wait for Silksong to references to specific characters and moments. The phrase, "no cost too great," a line from the Pale King's workshop, has become iconic. The image of the knight sitting on a bench has become a symbol of rest and contemplation. These cultural artifacts show how deeply Hollow Knight has embedded itself in the collective consciousness of gamers. For many players, Hollow Knight represents a formative gaming experience, a game that challenged them, moved them, and stayed with them long after the credits rolled. The journey through Hallownest is one of discovery, both of the world and of oneself. Players learn to overcome challenges, to persist through failure, to find beauty in darkness. The themes of Hollow Knight, sacrifice, duty, the cost of ambition, the nature of consciousness, resonate on a deep level. The game asks difficult questions and doesn't always provide easy answers, trusting players to think and feel and come to their own conclusions. The world of Hallownest is a place of contradictions. It is beautiful and horrifying, peaceful and violent, hopeful and tragic. It is a kingdom that reached great heights and fell to terrible depths. It is populated by characters who are kind and cruel, noble and selfish, simple and complex. The knight's journey through this world is one of constant discovery, of peeling back layers to reveal deeper truths. Every area explored, every character met, every secret uncovered adds to the understanding of what Hallownest was and what it has become. Rest here for a moment in this understanding. Hallownest is not a simple place, and its story has no easy answers. That complexity is part of its beauty, part of what makes it feel real and alive. Let your mind drift through these contradictions. finding peace in the knowledge that light and darkness, hope and tragedy can exist together. Breathe slowly and let the weight of this world settle gently around you. As you drift off to sleep tonight, let your mind wander through the winding tunnels of Hallownest. Picture the rain falling endlessly in the City of Tears, the sound of water echoing through empty streets. Imagine the soft glow of bioluminescent fungi in the fungal wastes, casting gentle light over ancient structures. Feel the cool darkness of Deepnest, mysterious and unknowable. See the gleaming crystals of Crystal Peak pulsing with inner light. Walk through the overgrown beauty of the Queen's Gardens, where nature has reclaimed what was once carefully tended. Stand at the edge of the abyss, looking down into infinite darkness, and know that even in that void there is purpose and meaning. Think of the characters you've met on this journey. Remember Elderbug's kindness, Quirrell's wisdom, Hornet's strength. Think of the Hollow Knight, a being created for a purpose it never chose, suffering in silence to protect a kingdom. Think of the Radiance, a forgotten god seeking to reclaim what was taken from her. Think of the Pale King, a ruler who loved his kingdom so much that he was willing to sacrifice everything, even his own children, to save it. These characters are not simply good or evil, they are complex beings with understandable motivations, making choices that have consequences. Consider the themes that run through Hollow Knight's story: the cost of ambition, the weight of duty, the nature of sacrifice, the possibility of redemption. The Pale King's ambition to create a perfect kingdom led to terrible acts and ultimate failure. The Hollow Knight's sense of duty kept it imprisoned and suffering for ages. The sacrifices made by the Dreamers, by the Vessels, by countless bugs throughout Hallownest, all in service of trying to save the kingdom. And yet, there is hope. The Knight, a discarded vessel, returns and succeeds where others failed. The infection can be ended, Hallownest can be freed. Even in the darkest places, light can be found. Hollow Knight teaches us that perfection is impossible, that flaws and imperfections are part of what makes us who we are. The Pale King sought to create a hollow vessel, a being without thought or feeling, and he failed because such a thing cannot truly exist. The Hollow Knight developed an idea, a sense of self, because it was alive and conscious. That imperfection, that tiny spark of individuality, was both its weakness and its humanity. The Knight, another imperfect vessel, succeeds not by being hollow, but by having the determination and will to see the journey through to its end. The game also reminds us of the importance of exploration and curiosity. Hallownest is filled with secrets, and finding them requires paying attention, trying different approaches and venturing into dangerous places. The most rewarding discoveries are often hidden in the most unexpected locations. This philosophy extends beyond the game, encouraging us to explore our own worlds, to seek out new experiences, to not be satisfied with surface-level understanding. There is always more to discover if we're willing to look. Hollow Knight shows us that small things can have great impact. Team Cherry is a small studio, just a few people working together, and they created something that has touched millions of lives. The Knight is a small vessel, discarded and forgotten, and yet it accomplishes what the greatest minds of Hallownest could not. Size and power are not the only measures of worth. Determination, skill, and heart matter just as much, if not more. The development philosophy of Team Cherry is worth exploring in greater depth, as it reveals much about why Hollow Knight resonates so deeply with players. Ari Gibson and William Pellen have spoken in interviews about their commitment to handcrafting every aspect of the game. They refuse to use procedural generation or asset flipping, instead drawing and animating every sprite by hand, designing every room individually and playtesting extensively to ensure that every encounter felt intentional and meaningful. This dedication to craft is evident in every frame of the game, from the way the knight's cloak flutters to the intricate background details that most players might never consciously notice, but which contribute to the overall atmosphere. Team Cherry also made deliberate choices about what to include and what to leave out. They resisted the temptation to add features that didn't serve the core experience, focusing instead on perfecting the fundamentals of movement, combat, and exploration. The game doesn't have a crafting system, a skill tree with dozens of options, or a complex inventory management system. Instead, it has tight controls, responsive combat, and a world that rewards curiosity. This focus on quality over quantity is part of what makes Hollow Knight feel so cohesive and polished. The team's approach to post-launch support also deserves recognition. Rather than releasing paid DLC or moving on to a new project immediately, Team Cherry released 4 major content updates for Hollow Knight completely free of charge. The Hidden Dreams update added new bosses and dream variants. The Grim Troop update introduced an entire quest line with new characters, areas, and bosses. The Lifeblood update added the Hive and additional content. The Godmaster update added God, Home and the Pantheons, providing endgame content for skilled players. Each of these updates was substantial, adding hours of content and deepening the game's world. This generosity toward the player base fostered goodwill and demonstrated Team Cherry's commitment to supporting their game and community. The influence of classic games on Hollow Knight is clear, but Team Cherry didn't simply copy their inspirations. They studied what made games like Super Metroid and Castlevania Symphony of the Night great, and then added their own innovations and ideas. The charm system, for example, is a unique take on character customization that feels fresh and engaging. The Dream Nail mechanic adds a layer of exploration and storytelling that goes beyond what most Metroidvania games attempt. The boss design in Hollow Knight is consistently excellent, with each encounter feeling distinct and memorable. Team Cherry took the foundation of the Metroidvania genre and built something that honours the classics while standing as its own masterpiece. The pacing of Hollow Knight is carefully calibrated to maintain player engagement throughout the lengthy adventure. The early game introduces mechanics gradually, teaching players the basics without overwhelming them. The mid-game opens up, giving players freedom to explore in multiple directions and tackle challenges in different orders. The late game focuses and intensifies, guiding players toward the climactic confrontations while still offering optional content for those who seek it. This structure respects the player's time and intelligence, providing guidance when needed but never forcing a single path. The environmental storytelling in Hollow Knight is masterful, conveying narrative and atmosphere through visual design and subtle details. The City of Tears tells a story of faded grandeur through its architecture, the eternal rain suggesting endless mourning for what was lost. The corpses of bugs found throughout Hallownest, each with their own implied story, add weight to the world. The way certain areas show signs of the infection's spread, with orange pustules and twisted vegetation, creates a sense of creeping corruption. Players who pay attention to these details gain a richer understanding of Hallownest's history and the tragedy that befell it. The use of colour in Hollow Knight is particularly effective. Each region has a distinct colour palette that immediately communicates its character. The blues and greys of the City of Tears evoke melancholy. The greens of Greenpath suggest life and growth. The pinks of Crystal Peak create a sense of alien beauty. The oranges of the Infection are jarring and unnatural, standing out against the cooler tones of most environments. This colour coding helps with navigation and creates strong visual associations with different areas. The sound design, beyond the music, contributes significantly to the atmosphere. The ambient sounds of each area, the dripping water in caves, the wind in the howling cliffs, the buzzing of infected enemies, all create a sense of place. The sound of the knight's footsteps changes depending on the surface, a small detail that adds to immersion. The audio cues for enemy attacks help players react even when they can't see the threat, making the sound design functional as well as atmospheric. Christopher Larkin's approach to the soundtrack deserves deeper examination. Larkin composed music that serves the game rather than calling attention to itself. Many tracks are subtle and atmospheric, enhancing the mood without dominating the experience. The music swells during boss fights and emotional moments, but it also knows when to pull back and let silence or ambient sound take over. The leitmotifs that recur throughout the soundtrack create musical connections between different areas and characters, adding cohesion to the score. The main theme, which plays in Dirtmouth and recurs in various forms, is simple but memorable, capturing the melancholic beauty of Hallownest. The accessibility of Hollow Knight is worth discussing. While the game is challenging, it's also remarkably accessible in terms of controls and mechanics. The control scheme is simple, with only a few buttons needed for all actions. The game runs smoothly on modest hardware, making it accessible to players who don't have high-end gaming systems. The price point is reasonable, especially considering the amount of content provided. Team Cherry has made Hollow Knight available on multiple platforms, ensuring that players can experience the game regardless of their preferred gaming device. This accessibility has contributed to the game's widespread appeal and success. The replayability of Hollow Knight is exceptional. Beyond the obvious appeal of experiencing the story and world again, the game offers numerous ways to create fresh experiences. Different charm builds can make the game feel entirely different, emphasizing different playstyles and strategies. Sequence breaking, using advanced techniques to access areas earlier than intended, allows skilled players to create their own routes through Hallownest. Self-imposed challenges, like no-hit runs or minimalist runs that avoid collecting upgrades, provide extreme tests of skill. The randomizer community has created tools that shuffle item locations, forcing players to adapt and explore in new ways. Speedrunners continue to find new optimizations and strategies, pushing the boundaries of what's possible. All of these factors mean that players can return to Hollow Knight repeatedly and find new things to enjoy. The modding community, while smaller than for some games, has created interesting content for Hollow Knight. Custom bosses, new areas, quality of life improvements, and total conversion mods have all been created by dedicated fans. Team Cherry has been supportive of modding, and the community has created tools to make modding more accessible. This extends the life of the game and allows creative players to contribute their own ideas to the Hollow Knight universe. The philosophical themes of Hollow Knight invite deep reflection. The game explores questions of identity, purpose, and sacrifice. The vessels were created without choice, designed for a specific purpose, and most were discarded as failures. The knight's journey can be seen as a quest for meaning, taking on the burden that the Hollow Knight could not bear and choosing to end the cycle of suffering. The Pale King's actions raise questions about the ethics of sacrifice for the greater good. Was he justified in creating and discarding thousands of vessels to save his kingdom? The game doesn't provide easy answers, instead presenting the situation and allowing players to form their own judgments. The theme of memory and forgetting runs throughout Hollow Knight. The Radiance was forgotten, and this forgetting drove her to create the infection. Many characters have lost their memories or are trying to remember their pasts. The kingdom itself is a faded memory, its glory days long past. The act of exploration in Hollow Knight is an act of remembering, piecing together what Hallownest was from the fragments that remain. This theme resonates with the player's experience, as we gradually uncover the story and come to understand the world. The relationship between light and darkness in Hollow Knight is complex and nuanced. The Pale King brought light and consciousness, which are generally seen as positive, but his light also brought ambition, suffering, and the conditions that led to the kingdom's fall. The void is darkness and emptiness, which seem negative, but the void is also what ultimately defeats the radiance and ends the infection. The game suggests that neither light nor darkness is inherently good or evil, but rather that both have their place and purpose. Balance and understanding are more important than choosing one over the other. The concept of hollowness itself is central to the game's themes. To be hollow is to be empty, without thought or feeling. The Pale King sought to create a hollow vessel, believing that only something without consciousness could contain the radiance. But the game suggests that true hollowness is impossible, that consciousness and feeling are inherent to existence. The Hollow Knight failed because it wasn't truly hollow, because it had developed a bond with its father. The player's knight succeeds not by being hollow, but by having the will and determination to see the task through. The game ultimately affirms the value of consciousness, emotion, and connection, even as it explores the costs and complications these things bring. The portrayal of family in Hollow Knight is complex and often tragic. The Pale King and White Lady created thousands of children for a specific purpose, discarding most of them. The Hollow Knight was raised and trained, only to be sealed away to suffer eternally. Hornet is the daughter of the Pale King and Hera, born as part of a bargain. These family relationships are defined by duty and sacrifice, rather than love and nurturing, though there are hints that genuine affection existed. The Grub Father's relationship with the Grubs, whatever its ultimate nature, is another example of family dynamics in Hallownest. These portrayals invite players to think about what family means and what obligations parents and children have to each other. The game's treatment of death and mortality is also noteworthy. Death in Hollow Knight is not always final or simple. The knight dies and returns, learning from each failure. Many characters exist in states between life and death, like the dreamers in eternal sleep, or the spirits that can be encountered with the dream nail. The infection itself is a kind of living death, taking away consciousness and agency while leaving the body animated. This ambiguity around death creates a dreamlike liminal quality to Hallownest, a sense that the normal rules don't fully apply in this strange underground kingdom. The ending of Hollow Knight, particularly the true ending where the knight defeats the Radiance, is both triumphant and bittersweet. The infection is ended, and Hallownest is freed from the plague, but the kingdom is still in ruins, its people still dead or gone. The knight's fate is ambiguous, with the implication that it may have been destroyed or fundamentally changed in the process of defeating the Radiants. The ending doesn't provide a neat resolution or a return to how things were. Instead, it offers closure and the possibility of a new beginning, leaving the future uncertain but hopeful. This fits the game's overall tone, which acknowledges tragedy and loss while still finding beauty and meaning in the struggle. As you lie here, drifting towards sleep, let your mind wander through all the details we've explored tonight. Think about the dedication of Team Cherry, 3 friends who poured years of their lives into creating something beautiful. Think about the countless hours of work that went into every sprite, every animation, every piece of music. Think about the players around the world who have explored Hallownest, each finding their own meaning in the journey. Think about the community that has formed around this game, sharing discoveries, creating art, supporting each other through challenges. Consider the lessons that Hollow Knight teaches through its gameplay and story. Persistence in the face of difficulty, the value of exploration and curiosity, the importance of learning from failure, the beauty that can be found in dark places, the power of small actions and small beings to create great change. These lessons extend beyond the game, offering wisdom for navigating the challenges of life. Imagine yourself as the knight one more time, sitting peacefully in Dirtmouth as the sun sets over the ruins of Hallownest. The last stag rests in his station, grateful for purpose. Elderbug sits on his bench, content that the town has life again. The rescued NPCs go about their business, each finding their own small happiness in this quiet place. The dangers below have been faced, the challenges overcome. For now there is only peace and the satisfaction of a journey completed. Let the images of Hallownest fill your dreams tonight. The glowing blue of the City of Tears, rain falling eternally on empty streets. The lush green of Greenpath, moss and vines creating a garden in the depths. The pink crystals of Crystal Peak, pulsing with mysterious energy. The white void of the abyss, empty and infinite. The blinding light of the Radiance's realm, platforms floating in brightness. All of these places beautiful and strange, waiting to be explored in the theatre of your sleeping mind. Think of the characters you've met, each with their own story, their own struggles, their own small part in the grand tragedy of Hallownest. Quirrell, finding peace by the blue lake, Hornet carrying on her duty to protect what remains, the nailsmith finding new purpose and happiness, Cloth achieving the warrior's death she sought, Myla singing happily before the infection took her. Each of these stories matters, each adds depth and emotion to the world. Remember that Hollow Knight is more than just a game. It's a work of art, a labour of love, a testament to what can be achieved with passion and dedication. It's a world that has touched millions of people, inspiring them, challenging them, moving them. It's a story that resonates because it speaks to universal themes and emotions, because it treats its audience with respect and intelligence. It's an experience that stays with you long after you've put down the controller, influencing how you think about games, art, and storytelling. The game's approach to storytelling, trusting players to piece together the narrative from fragments and environmental details, respects the intelligence and curiosity of its audience. It doesn't hold your hand or spell everything out. It presents a world and invites you to explore it, to think about what you're seeing, to form your own interpretations. This approach creates a deeper engagement with the story, as players become active participants in uncovering the truth rather than passive recipients of information. Turn your attention now to the charm system, exploring each of these fascinating items and how they shape the player's experience. The Wayward Compass, as mentioned, shows the knight's location on the map, a simple but invaluable tool for navigation in the sprawling labyrinth of Hallownest. The gathering swarm causes Geo to fly toward the knight, making collection effortless and ensuring no currency is left behind, the coins chiming softly as they gather. The stalwart shell increases invincibility frames after taking damage, giving players more time to escape dangerous situations. These basic charms are accessible early and provide immediate understandable benefits. The fragile charms are a trio of powerful items that come with a significant risk. Fragile Heart adds 2 masks of health. Fragile Greed increases Geo gained from all sources, and Fragile Strength significantly boosts nail damage. However, all 3 break when the knight dies, requiring repair by Leg Eater, the merchant who sells them, for a substantial fee. The risk-reward nature of these charms creates interesting decisions. Do you equip Fragile Strength for a difficult boss fight, knowing that death means losing the charm's benefit and having to pay to repair it? Or do you play it safe with more reliable options? Later in the game, these charms can be upgraded to unbreakable versions that never break, but the cost is steep, requiring significant Geo investment. The spell-focused charms open up entirely different playstyles. Shaman Stone increases the power of all spells by 33%, making magic-focused builds viable and powerful. Spell Twister reduces the soul cost of spells, allowing for more frequent casting. Soul Catcher and Soul Eater increase the amount of soul gained from hitting enemies, ensuring a steady supply of resources for spell casting. Dream Wielder makes the Dream Nail charge faster and gives more soul when hitting enemies with it, supporting builds that rely on soul generation. Combining these charms creates a powerful mage-like character who can devastate enemies with spells while barely using the nail. The movement-based charms enhance the knight's mobility and create opportunities for creative play. Dash Master allows the knight to dash more frequently and dash downward, opening up new movement options. Sprint Master increases walking speed, making traversal faster and more fluid. Sharp Shadow, as mentioned, makes the dash deal damage, turning a defensive move into an offensive tool. The combination of these charms with the knight's natural ability creates a highly mobile, aggressive playstyle that rewards skilled movement. The defensive charms provide various forms of protection and survivability. Quick Focus makes healing faster, allowing the knight to recover health in situations where the normal healing time would be too risky. Deep Focus makes healing restore 2 masks instead of 1, but takes longer, creating a trade-off between efficiency and time. Baldur Shell provides protection while healing or focusing soul, reducing damage taken during these vulnerable moments. Thorns of Agony causes the knight to release damaging thorns when hit, providing a counterattack opportunity. Combining defensive charms creates a tanky build that can survive longer in difficult encounters. Some charms are purely offensive, designed to maximize damage output. Mark of Pride increases the range of the nail, allowing the knight to hit enemies from farther away. Long Nail provides a smaller range increase for fewer notches. Quick Slash increases attack speed, allowing for more hits in the same amount of time. Fury of the Fallen increases damage when the knight is at 1 mask of health, rewarding risky play. Combining these offensive charms creates a glass cannon build that can defeat enemies and bosses quickly, but requires precise play to avoid taking damage. The minion charms provide companions that fight alongside the knight. Weaversong summons 3 weaverlings that attack nearby enemies, automatically. Glowing Womb spawns hatchlings that cost health to create but attack enemies independently. Grubsong, which gives soul when taking damage, synergizes perfectly with Glowing Womb, as the health cost of spawning hatchlings can be offset by the soul gained from taking hits, which can then be used to heal. Combining Weaversong with Grubsong creates a build where the knight is constantly surrounded by allies, dealing passive damage while focusing on movement and positioning. Some charms are situational or niche, but incredibly powerful in the right circumstances. Heavy Blow knocks enemies back farther when hit, which can be useful for controlling space and pushing enemies into hazards. Steady Body prevents the knight from being knocked back when attacking, allowing for more aggressive close-range combat. Grubberfly's Elegy, obtained by rescuing all 46 grubs, causes the nail to shoot projectiles when at full health, effectively giving the knight a ranged attack. Johnny's Blessing converts all masks into lifeblood, which cannot be healed but provides a large health pool, useful for boss fights where healing opportunities are scarce. The Grim Troop charms add unique mechanics. Grim Child is a companion that shoots fireballs at enemies, growing stronger as the Grim Troop quest progresses. Carefree Melody, obtained by banishing the troop instead of completing the ritual, has a chance to negate damage when hit, providing random but potentially life-saving protection. Dream Shield creates a rotating shield that blocks projectiles and damages enemies, useful for dealing with ranged attacks. The Kingsoul Charm is a special item obtained by combining 2 halves found in the White Palace and the Queen's Gardens. When equipped, it slowly regenerates soul over time, allowing for passive healing and spellcasting without needing to hit enemies. However, Kingsoul costs 5 notches, taking up a significant portion of the knight's charm capacity. The true purpose of Kingsoul is revealed when the knight takes it to the abyss and sits on the throne. The charm transforms into the Void Heart, a unique charm that costs 0 notches and is required for the true ending. Void Heart unifies the void within the knight, preventing the siblings in the abyss from attacking and allowing access to the final confrontation with the Radiance. The Charm Notch system creates meaningful progression throughout the game. The knight starts with 3 notches and can find or purchase additional notches, eventually reaching a maximum of 11. Each new notch opens up more build possibilities, allowing for more complex charm combinations. Finding charm notches is always exciting, as it represents a direct increase in the knight's customization potential. Some notches are hidden in secret areas, rewarding thorough exploration. Others are sold by Salubra, a merchant in the Forgotten Crossroads, with each notch costing more than the last. The overcharm mechanic adds another layer of strategy. If the knight equips charms that exceed their notch capacity, they become overcharmed, taking double damage from all sources. This creates a high-risk, high-reward option for players who want maximum power at the cost of survivability. Some challenge runs specifically use overcharming to create extremely powerful but fragile builds, requiring perfect play to succeed. Imagine now the bosses of Hollow Knight, examining their mechanics, their stories, and the challenges they present. The False Knight, as mentioned, is often the first major boss players encounter. The fight takes place in a large arena in the Forgotten Crossroads, the sound of the mace echoing off stone walls. The false knight attacks with slow but powerful swings of its weapon, each strike heavy with desperation. The key to the fight is recognizing the tells before each attack and positioning appropriately. When the false knight slams its mace down, it creates shock waves that ripple across the ground, forcing you to jump. When it charges across the arena, the knight must dash or jump to avoid being crushed. After taking enough damage, the armor breaks with a metallic crash, revealing Maggot inside, small and afraid. The second phase is easier, as Maggot is vulnerable, attacking with weak headbutts. Defeating the false knight grants the city crest, which opens the way to the City of Tears. Take a breath here. Each boss in Hollow Knight tells a story, not just through dialogue, but through their movements, their arena, their very existence. They're not simply obstacles, but characters with their own tragedies and motivations. As we explore these encounters, let yourself feel the weight of each story, the sadness and beauty woven into every fight. The False Knight has a dream variant called the Failed Champion, encountered in the Forgotten Crossroads after obtaining the Dream Nail and Awoken Dream Nail. The Failed Champion is a more aggressive and powerful version, with faster attacks, new moves and more health. The arena is smaller, and the boss's attacks cover more space, requiring precise movement and timing. Defeating the Failed Champion grants Essence, a resource used to upgrade the Dream Nail and unlock certain content. Hornet's first fight in Green Path is a skill check, testing whether the player has mastered the basic combat mechanics. Hornet is fast and aggressive, dashing across the arena, throwing her needle as a ranged attack, and setting thread traps that damage the knight if touched. She can also heal herself once during the fight, prolonging the encounter. The key is to be patient, to attack when she's vulnerable after her own attacks, and to avoid her thread traps. Defeating Hornet grants the Mothwing Cloak, the dash ability that is essential for further exploration. Hornet's second fight at the Kingdom's Edge is significantly harder. This version, called Hornet Sentinel, has new attacks and more aggressive patterns. She can now perform a spinning aerial attack that covers a large area, and her thread traps are more numerous and strategically placed. The arena is smaller, giving the player less room to maneuver. Defeating Hornet Sentinel proves that the knight is ready for the challenges ahead, and grants access to the cast-off shell needed to awaken the Dream Nail. The Mantis Lord's fight is a masterclass in game design, a perfectly balanced encounter that feels like a dance. The fight begins with one Mantis Lord who attacks with throwing glaives and dashing strikes. After defeating the first, the other two join the battle simultaneously, attacking in coordinated patterns. The key is to learn the rhythm of their attacks, to recognize which Mantis Lord is attacking and respond appropriately. The fight is challenging but fair, with clear telegraphs and consistent patterns. When the Mantis Lords are defeated, they bow to the knight in respect, acknowledging its strength. This moment of mutual honor is rare in Hallownest, and makes the Mantis Lords one of the most beloved boss encounters. The Soul Master is a tragic figure, a scholar who became obsessed with soul and immortality. His fight is chaotic, with the boss teleporting around the arena, firing soul blasts and diving at the knight. The arena has platforms that can be used for positioning, and learning to predict where the Soul Master will teleport is key to success. When defeated, he falls through the floor, seemingly dead. but returning later reveals the Soul Tyrant, a more powerful and desperate version. The Soul Tyrant has additional attacks, including a rotating orb attack and faster teleports. Defeating the Soul Tyrant grants essence and a sense of finality to the Soul Master's tragic story. The Dung Defender is one of the most charming bosses in Hollow Knight, a jolly warrior who loves his job of protecting the waterways. Ogrim, as he's known, attacks by burrowing through the ground and leaping out to strike the knight, throwing dung balls as projectiles. Despite the gross nature of his attacks, the Dung Defender is cheerful and honourable, laughing throughout the fight. When defeated, he congratulates the knight and allows passage. His dream variant, the White Defender, can be fought multiple times in the royal waterways, with each victory making him slightly stronger. The White Defender is a test of endurance and consistency, rewarding players who can execute the fight perfectly multiple times. The Flukemam is a grotesque boss in the royal waterways, a massive creature that births flukes, worm-like enemies that swarm the knight. The fight is less about dodging complex patterns and more about managing the adds while damaging the boss. The Flukemam herself doesn't move, instead relying on her offspring to overwhelm the player. Using area of effect spells like Howling Wraiths is effective for clearing the flukes while damaging the boss. The Broken Vessel, as discussed, is a tragic encounter with another failed vessel. The fight takes place in the ancient basin, in a dark arena lit only by the infection's orange glow. The Broken Vessel attacks with erratic movements, jumping and slashing unpredictably. Infection balloons spawn during the fight, releasing infection blobs that chase the knight. The key is to destroy the balloons quickly while avoiding the boss's attacks. The dream variant, the Lost Kin, is faster and more aggressive, with more infection balloons and tighter timing windows. Nosk is a horrifying boss found in Deep Nest, a shape-shifting creature that initially appears as a copy of the knight, luring the player into its lair. When the fight begins, Nosk reveals its true form, a grotesque spider-like monster with the knight's shell as a mask. Nosk attacks by running along the walls and ceiling, leaping at the knight and spitting infection. The arena is small and claustrophobic, fitting Deepnest's oppressive atmosphere. Defeating Nosk grants access to a room filled with the shells of previous victims, a grim reminder of the creature's hunting success. The Collector is a hidden boss in the Tower of Love, a strange bug who collects other bugs and preserves them in jars. The Collector bounces around the arena, spawning jars that release enemies. The fight is chaotic, requiring the player to manage multiple threats while damaging the boss. The Collector's motivations are unclear, but the implication is that it's trying to preserve bugs from the infection, albeit in a twisted way. Traitor Lord is a boss in the Queen's Gardens, a mantis who betrayed the Mantis tribe and accepted the infection in exchange for power. The fight is similar to the Mantis Lords, but more aggressive and less honourable. Traitor Lord attacks with powerful slashes and shockwaves, and the arena is filled with hazards. The fight is a test of the skills learned from the Mantis Lords, but with higher stakes and less room for error. The Watcher Knights, as mentioned, are one of the hardest required bosses, 6 armoured knights fought in pairs. Each knight can roll across the arena, slash with their weapons, and bounce off walls. Managing 2 knights simultaneously while conserving health for the pairs that follow is extremely challenging. The fight rewards patience and careful resource management, as rushing in often leads to taking unnecessary damage. Umu is a boss in the Teacher's Archives, a jellyfish-like creature protected by a membrane. The knight cannot damage Umu directly, and must instead use the Umas, smaller jellyfish enemies in the arena, to break the membrane. Once exposed, Umu can be damaged with the nail. The fight is a puzzle as much as a combat encounter, requiring the player to understand the mechanics and use the environment to their advantage. The Crystal Guardian and Enraged Guardian are bosses in the Crystal Peak, large crystallized bugs that shoot lasers and jump around the arena. The first fight is relatively straightforward, but the Enraged Guardian, fought later in the same location, is much more aggressive and covers the arena with laser beams. The fight requires constant movement and careful positioning to avoid the overlapping attacks. Hive Knight is an optional boss in the Hive, a hidden area in the kingdom's edge. The Hive Knight is a noble warrior who protects the hive and its queen. The fight is fast-paced, with the boss dashing across the arena, throwing bee-shaped projectiles and summoning bees to assist. The Hive Knight is honourable, bowing before and after the fight, similar to the Mantis Lords. The Radiance, the true final boss, is the culmination of everything Hollow Knight builds toward. The fight takes place in a dream realm of blinding white light, with platforms appearing and disappearing. The Radiance attacks with beams of light, swords that fall from above, and orbs that chase the knight. The fight has multiple phases, each more intense than the last. In the final phase, the platforms disappear entirely, and the knight must climb upward while avoiding attacks, finally striking the Radiance to end the fight. The music swells, the visuals are overwhelming, and the sense of accomplishment upon victory is immense. The Absolute Radiance fought in the Pantheon of Hallownest is even harder, with faster attacks, more aggressive patterns, and less room for error. This fight is considered one of the hardest challenges in gaming, requiring hundreds of attempts for most players to master. The satisfaction of finally defeating the Absolute Radiance is unparalleled, a true test of skill and determination. Beyond the bosses, Hollow Knight is filled with hidden content and secrets that reward exploration, treasures waiting in silence for those patient enough to seek them. The White Palace is a secret area accessed through the palace grounds in the ancient basin. To enter, the knight must use the awoken dream nail on the corpse of the Pale King. Inside, the White Palace is a pristine, gleaming structure filled with deadly saw blades and platforming challenges, white stone reflecting pale light. The palace tests the player's movement skills, requiring precise use of the dash, wall jump, and other abilities. At the end of the White Palace, the knight finds one half of the King Soul charm. Hidden within the White Palace is the Path of Pain, a secret area that is arguably the hardest platforming challenge in the game. The Path of Pain is a long gauntlet of precise jumps, dashes, and wall jumps, with no room for error. A single mistake sends the knight back to the last checkpoint, and there are only 2 checkpoints in the entire section. Completing the Path of Pain grants no tangible reward beyond a brief scene showing the Hollow Knight as a child with the Pale King, but the sense of accomplishment is reward enough for many players. The Abyss is one of the most important and atmospheric locations in Hollow Knight. Descending into the Abyss reveals a pit of absolute darkness, where the void pools and churns. The siblings, the failed vessels, climb from the darkness, their empty eyes watching the night. With the Shade Cloak, the knight can pass through the siblings without harm, descending to the very bottom of the Abyss. Here, sitting on the throne and equipping the King Soul transforms it into the Void Heart, unifying the void and allowing the night to challenge the radiance. The birthplace, at the bottom of the abyss, shows the origins of the vessels. Broken shells litter the ground, the remains of thousands of failed attempts. The scene is haunting and beautiful, a testament to the Pale King's desperation and the cost of his plan. The music in the abyss is minimal, emphasizing the emptiness and the weight of what happened here. The Howling Cliffs is an area above Hallownest, accessible from the Forgotten Crossroads. The cliffs are windswept and desolate, with few enemies and a sense of isolation. Here, the knight can find Johnny, a dead bug whose blessing becomes a charm. The Howling Cliffs also contain a secret passage to the Kingdom's Edge and a stag station, making it a useful shortcut. The Colosseum of Fools is an optional challenge area in the Kingdom's Edge, where the knight can participate in 3 trials of increasing difficulty. The trials are wave-based combat encounters, testing the player's fighting skills against multiple enemies and bosses. Completing all 3 trials grants rewards and a sense of mastery over the game's combat system. The 3rd trial, the Trial of the Fool, is particularly challenging, featuring difficult enemy combinations and environmental hazards. The Grim Troop content, as mentioned, adds a quest line involving collecting flames and fighting Grim. The quest also includes a unique charm, the Grim Child, which evolves as the quest progresses. The choice between completing the ritual and banishing the troop adds replay value, as players can experience both outcomes in different playthroughs. The Godmaster content adds Godhome, a realm where the knight can fight all bosses in various combinations. The Pantheons are the main attraction, with 5 increasingly difficult boss rushes. The Hall of Gods allows players to practice individual bosses and attempt them on higher difficulties, called Ascended and Radiant. Radiant difficulty removes all of the knight's health, making any hit instant death, creating the ultimate test of pattern mastery. The Lifeblood update added new content, including the Hive area and Hive Knight boss. It also added Lifeblood cocoons throughout the world, which grant temporary blue masks that cannot be healed but provide extra health. This update enriched the world and gave players more to discover. The Hidden Dreams update added dream variants of several bosses, new dream dialogue for NPCs and additional content. This update deepened the lore and provided more challenges for players who had mastered the base game. The community has discovered numerous secrets and Easter eggs in Hollow Knight. The weathered mask found in the Howling Cliffs hints at the knight's origins. The Delicate Flower quest given by the Grey Mourner tasks the knight with delivering a fragile flower to a grave in the Queen's gardens without taking damage, a test of skill and patience. The reward is a unique charm and a touching scene at the grave. Mr. Mushroom is a hidden NPC who appears in various locations throughout the game. Finding and dream. Nailing Mr. Mushroom in all locations unlocks a secret cutscene that hints at the broader cosmology of Hollow Knight's universe, suggesting connections to other worlds and dimensions. The Eternal Ordeal is a hidden game mode accessed through a secret passage in Godhome. It's an endless wave survival mode where the knight fights an infinite number of Zotes, a comedic and challenging endurance test. Zote the Mighty is a recurring character, a self-proclaimed knight who's actually incompetent and cowardly. The knight can encounter Zote in various locations, saving him from danger. If saved in Deepnest, Zote appears in Dirtmouth, and later in the Colosseum. If the knight defeats him in the Colosseum, Zote becomes a dream boss called Grey Prince Zote, fought in Bretta's dreams. Grey Prince Zote is a comically overpowered version of Zote with exaggerated attacks and abilities. The fight can be repeated multiple times, with Zote becoming stronger each time, eventually becoming one of the hardest bosses in the game despite being a joke character. Greta is an NPC rescued from the fungal wastes, who becomes infatuated with the knight, writing about their heroic deeds in her diary. If Zote is saved, Greta's affections shift to him instead, and her diary entries become about Zote's imagined heroism. This subplot is charming and humorous, adding personality to Dirtmouth. Tiso is an aspiring warrior who travels to the Colosseum of Fools to prove himself. If the knight completes the first 2 trials before Tiso, he will attempt the 3rd trial and die, his broken shield found in the kingdom's edge. If the knight never completes the trials, Tiso's fate is left ambiguous. This small story adds weight to the Colosseum, showing that not everyone who seeks glory survives. Cloth is a warrior met in the fungal wastes, searching for her own purpose and glory. She can be encountered in several locations, and if certain conditions are met, she will assist the knight in the fight against Traitor Lord. If she helps, Cloth dies in the battle, achieving the warrior's death she sought. If the knight defeats Traitor Lord before meeting Cloth in the Queen's gardens, she survives and can be found in Dirtmouth, disappointed that she didn't find her glorious end. This choice adds moral complexity, as saving Cloth means denying her the death she wanted. The nailsmith story, as mentioned, involves upgrading the nail. After the final upgrade, the nailsmith believes his life's work is complete and asks the knight to strike him down with the pure nail, giving his death meaning. The player can choose to kill him or spare him. If spared, the nailsmith eventually finds new purpose and happiness with Shio, one of the nail masters, in a touching conclusion to his arc. The nail masters are 3 brothers who studied under the great nail sage, mastering different nail techniques. Sheo, Matto, and Oro each teach the knight a unique nail art. Cyclone Slash is a spinning attack that hits multiple times. Great Slash is a powerful charge strike, and Dash Slash is a dashing attack that covers distance quickly. These nail arts add variety to combat and are useful in different situations. Collecting all 3 and visiting the graves of the great nail sage and his wife grants the pure nail achievement and a sense of connection to the history of nail combat in Hallownest. The pale ore needed for nail upgrades is hidden throughout Hallownest in challenging locations. Finding all the pale ore requires thorough exploration and mastery of the game's mechanics, rewarding dedicated players with the strongest nail. The mask shards and vessel fragments are collectibles that increase the knight's health and soul capacity. 4 mask shards combine to create a new mask, and 3 vessel fragments combine to create a new soul vessel. Finding these upgrades is essential for tackling the game's harder challenges, and they're hidden in every corner of Hallownest, encouraging exploration. The rancid eggs are items that can be given to Confessor Gigi in Dirtmouth to summon the Night's Shade without having to return to the location of death. This is useful when the Shade is in a dangerous or hard-to-reach location. Rancid eggs are found throughout the world or purchased from merchants, and they're a valuable resource for players who struggle with certain areas. The stag stations are fast travel points scattered throughout Hallownest, operated by the last stag, an elderly stag beetle who is the last of his kind. The last stag's dialogue is melancholic, reflecting on the fall of Hallownest and the loss of his species. As the night unlocks more stag stations, the last stag becomes happier, grateful to have purpose again. His story is a small but touching element of Hollow Knight's world. The trams are another form of fast travel connecting distant parts of Hallownest. The tram pass found in the failed tramway allows the knight to use the trams, opening up shortcuts between the ancient basin, Kingdom's Edge, and Deepnest. The trams are remnants of Hallownest's infrastructure, showing the kingdom's former sophistication. The Whispering Root locations are spots where the knight can use the Dream Nail to collect essence. These locations are marked by glowing roots and provide significant amounts of essence when completed. Some Whispering Roots also provide lore tidbits or environmental storytelling, adding depth to the world. The essence system is tied to the Dream Nail and the Seer, an ancient moth who gives the knight the Dream Nail. Collecting essence by defeating dream bosses, using the Dream Nail on Whispering Roots, and hitting certain enemies unlocks rewards from the Seer. At certain essence thresholds, the Seer grants the knight new abilities and charms, culminating in the awoken Dream Nail, which is needed to access the White Palace and progress toward the true ending. The Hunter's Journal is a bestiary that tracks all the enemies and bosses the knight encounters. The Hunter, a mysterious figure, provides commentary on each entry, offering insights into the creatures of Hallownest, his words both respectful and melancholic. Completing the Hunter's Journal by defeating every enemy type and boss grants the True Hunter achievement and a mark of respect from the Hunter. This completionist challenge encourages players to explore every area and fight every enemy type, deepening their engagement with the game's world. Pause once more and feel how far we've travelled through Hallownest together. From the rain-soaked streets of the City of Tears to the crystal-lit caverns of the Peak, from the darkness of Deepnest to the white void of the Abyss. Each location, each character, each secret adds another thread to the tapestry of this world. Let these images blend together in your mind, creating a dreamscape of beauty and mystery. As you close your eyes and let sleep take you, carry with you the lessons and feelings that Hollow Knight evokes. Remember that challenges can be overcome with patience and persistence. Remember that beauty can be found even in dark places. Remember that every journey, no matter how difficult, is worthwhile if it leads to growth and understanding. Remember that you are capable of more than you might think, that like the knight, you can face impossible odds and emerge victorious. Let the music of Hollow Knight play softly in your mind, Christopher Larkin's beautiful compositions guiding you into peaceful dreams. Hear the gentle piano of the City of Tears, the triumphant strings of the Mantis Lords, the ethereal vocals of the Resting Grounds. Let these melodies carry you away to a place of calm and rest. Picture yourself as the knight, sitting on a bench in some quiet corner of Hallownest, taking a moment to rest after a long journey. The world around you is still and peaceful. The dangers have been faced, the challenges overcome. For now there is only rest, only the quiet satisfaction of knowing you've done your best. The path ahead may hold more trials, but in this moment you are safe. You are at peace. If you've enjoyed this journey through the world of Hollow Knight, through its facts and lore and secrets, I would be grateful if you would consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel. There are so many more worlds to explore together, so many more stories to tell, but there's no pressure, no obligation. Just know that you're always welcome here, and I'm honoured that you chose to spend this time with me. Now, as we come to the end of our exploration, it's time to truly rest. Let go of the day's worries and stresses. Let your breathing slow and deepen. Feel your body relax, sinking into comfort. Your mind can wander freely through the caverns of Hallownest, exploring at its own pace, discovering its own secrets. There's no rush, no deadline, no pressure, just peaceful exploration and gentle discovery. Sleep well, traveller. May your dreams be filled with the wonder of discovery, the satisfaction of overcoming challenges, and the peace of a journey well travelled. May you find yourself wandering through beautiful, mysterious places, meeting interesting characters, and uncovering secrets that bring you joy. And when you wake, may you carry with you the determination of the night, the wisdom of Quirrell, the strength of Hornet, and the hope that even in the darkest places light can be found. Good night, and remember, no cost too great, no mind to think, no will to break, no voice to cry suffering. But you have a mind, a will, and a voice. Use them well. Rest now, little ghost. Your journey continues tomorrow. Sweet dreams, and may the kingdom of Hallownest watch over you as you sleep.